Most of the time when people have problems in their bodies and in their affairs, they never think about doing anything with their minds. I'm going to run into pasture again. Most of the time when people have problems in their bodies and in their affairs, they never think about doing anything about the mind. And that's the great difference in our teaching. We say if your body is infirm, if your affairs are infirm, you must first of all do something about the mind. Now that's interesting. And some people declare that we don't preach the Bible and that we don't preach Jesus. But what did Jesus say? According to your faith, so be it unto you. What's your faith? The way you think, the way you believe. And you can only believe with your mind. And even if we're going to be evangelistic and use the word repent, the word repent is a purely mental term, metanoia in the original Greek, which means what? Think again. Think again. And so regardless of what our problems are, we're going to have to start with the mind. My son Xavier came down to my library a few days ago. He had a book report or review to do for his psychology class, and he wanted to find a good book on psychology to make a report on. I said, well, perhaps you'll have a different kind of report to make to your psychology class, a report on psychology that deals with the issue of curing the body and the affairs by means of the mind. And not only curing the affairs in the body by means of the mind, but also controlling your life and making it what you want to be by means of your mind. And so he selected a book by Dr. Jack Ensign Addington, titled Psychogenesis. Say that word, Psychogenesis. Again? Psychogenesis. It's a combination of two terms, psycho indicating the mind, Genesis, beginning, and it literally means everything begins in mind. Say that. And let me blow your mind for a moment and let me tell you this. Whatever your situation is today, in your body, in your affairs, good, bad, or indifferent, everything in your experience begins in mind. And so if you really want to control your life, you really want to control your experience, you really want to change your body, you really want to change your affairs, you're going to have to go to the mind, and the mind will have to be healed of its infirmities. All right? I want to read this sentence again in the first person. It's an affirmation, and have you repeat it again. I, a mind, a man, must not be infirm. That's interesting. In other words, I must be firm in my positive beliefs. Well, go ahead and say it if you want to. I must be firm in my belief of good health.
I must be firm in my belief of good health.
I must be firm in my belief in happiness. I must be firm in my belief in prosperity.
I must be firm in my belief in prosperity.
And you see, you don't wait until you begin to have a problem in your body or in your affairs to do this. That's another thing that I'm trying to get people out of. Don't think that the healing ministry is just something for you to come to as an emergency room, and the only time you go there is when you have an emergency. Positive thinking is a way of living. Say that.
Positive thinking is a way of living.
Positive thinking is a way of thinking.
Positive thinking is a way of thinking.
Good health is a way of thinking.
Good health is a way of thinking.
Success is a way of thinking.
Success is a way
Prosperity is a way of thinking. Money is a way of thinking. Being broke is a way of thinking. Sickness is a way of thinking. You see, well, let's be comprehensive about it. Every condition is a way of thinking. Wow, that's so simple, but yet so profound. And you have to work on your mind every day to keep it firm. You see, it's not just as I say, don't do this just as an emergency measure. Somebody said to me the other day, Reverend Ike, do you ever have any doubts about your philosophy? Do you ever have any doubts in your mind? I said, now wait a minute. I said, in the first place, I have to work on my mind every day. It's an instant, constant thing. I said, do you ever find your mind going astray from your positive beliefs? I said, let me tell you, my mind and every mind is just like people driving a car. I said, and this young man was not a driver, so I said to him, I says, now, but I know you have watched people driving a car. Driving a car is a matter of constant correction, isn't it? Is that right? Now, if you're going to Washington, D.C., you can't just say, well, I'm going to get in the car and go to Washington, D.C. and just aim it toward Washington and step on the gas. So which way is Washington? That way. Okay. But when you're driving along in a car, you are constantly correcting your course. Is that right? Sometimes the car may pull a little too far to the right or a little too far to the left. Ladies and gentlemen, directing your mind is just like that. It's a matter of constant correction and direction. So say with me, working with my mind is a matter of constant correction and direction. And I want that up here on caps, in caps. Isn't that interesting? And you are going to have to take a hold of the steering wheel of your mind. And listen, if you're driving a car, just because the car goes a little too far to the right, you don't sit there and complain and cry, oh, why doesn't this car stay in the road? That's the way people do with their circumstances. Why does this happen to me? Why won't things go right? Are you holding the steering wheel? Are you constantly directing and correcting your thoughts, your moods, your attitudes, and your ideas? I'll tell you one thing, if you don't direct your mind, the world will sure as hell direct it. And I meant to put that strong word in there, because that's exactly where the world will direct your mind to. And I don't care how good you are at this thing, and I don't care how good a driver is, you will never see a driver so good that he doesn't have to direct and correct his course in driving. Have you ever seen a driver that doesn't have to correct his course in driving? How many drivers here? Raise your hands. Do you know what I'm talking about? How many people don't drive a car yet? Let's see your hands. Have you ever watched a driver? Have you ever wondered why they were always doing this? But you see, you have to be careful also that you don't go too far to the left, not to the right. You can't be too religious. Really? No, you can't be too religious. You know, don't get too holy on me. I don't even bother to talk to those folks who are too holy. And if I see anybody coming down the street or down the hall with a Bible ringing doorbells, no way there. No way. Don't even open your door. Run the other way. Of course, I don't know. I've got a knack of getting them off of me fast, you know. They're supposed to be able to hang on. I got the stuff for them, you know, because I know where they're coming from. But they don't have the slightest idea where I'm coming from, you see. How did I get off into that, you know? Well, brother, the Lord is coming. Are you getting ready to meet him? One group asked me. I said, now, wait a minute. I said, in the first place, I don't serve that God that goes and comes. I says, if he's coming from somewhere, he must not be here. He said, if he's not here, where is he now that I need him? And I get them off of me fast like that. They usually, you know, and I'm usually the one that's preaching at them as they go down the street with their tails tucked between their legs. Well, you see, you got to watch that too as you're directing and correcting your mind. You can't get off into, listen, don't get too deep. What did I say? Don't get too deep. See, every once in a while around this church, I watch people. If I see one getting too deep, I pray for them real good. Don't get too deep. If you find yourself getting too deep, go to the merry-go-round and get on the horse and ride around and laugh and have some fun. Yes, you have to constantly correct and direct your mind in order to stay on course. Because if the mind becomes infirm, the affairs will be infirm. I know I've been changed. I know I've been changed. I know I've been changed. The angels in the heaven are changed.